At this stage, let's take a quick look at the FumeFX file menu. So first of all, you'll notice that we have a lot of different stuff up here. And initially we have under File, we have Load Preset, and there's none there, and Save Preset. So this is really something that can be quite useful for a lot of different reasons. And one of the key things, though, is just for transferring information back and forth. Now, this isn't the same as having like an actual asset. Okay, this isn't going to be like I build an explosion and I can quickly load in an explosion with all the particle systems and other things all set up. This is more just the internal information that I want to use. But as I have an example here, this is the initial flame burst effect that I put in the files directory you can access. So once you've simulated it, we can see we have this quick kind of flame burst effect. Alright, and what we can do is, if we look at the rendering tab, for instance, I have a gradient set up and a curve, all that kind of stuff. I've got an object source. Here's my simulation parameters. You know, all the general stuff. So my dimensions, other things like that. Now, what I can do is I could save this out as a preset. So go File, Save Preset, and I'm just going to call this Flame Burst 1, and then I'm going to click on OK. Now, when I go back to File, Load Preset, we have Flame Burst 1. If I click on that, it'll ask me what do I want to bring in. Okay. So this is pretty useful, and as you can see, there's no mention of object source where my particle system is, because that is not something that is going to transfer across. Because obviously, all this is just a preset file, and it's not looking at physical objects or recreating anything either. So this just means that if I wanted to, I can then go and create a new file. So I'm just going to go start a new scene file, and I'll demonstrate how I built this effect. Is purely as built a container. I created, let's say, like a standard flow here, and I'm just going to make this emit for 2 frames. 200 particles is fine. And I'm going to just get rid of shape and rotation. I'm going to add a delete operator so I can make this last for 3 frames maybe. So we just have this quick effect. I'm going to make this 150, 75, 15 maybe. These are some quick settings. Make this last a little less, so we just have a quick burst of particles. Now I'm just going to go into helpers, FumeFX, and particle source, drag that out, and add the particle system. Now I'm just giving an overview. I'm not trying to explain what I'm doing here, because we're already covering a lot of this already up until this point. So I just want to focus more on the interface. But okay, I've loaded up my container. All I'm going to do is go to object source, and I'm going to add in my emitter here. Now I'm just setting a cache, and I can run simulate, and we can see that we just have these particles appearing with smoke and everything else. Now what I can do at this point is I can go File, Load Preset, Flame Burst, and I click on that, and it brings up all these parameters. So for instance, I could transfer over my simulation and my post, rendering, illumination, all that stuff, but I might turn the general tab off for the time being. I'll explain that in a moment. But I do that, all it's going to transfer across is my simulation, my post and wavelet, which again I don't really need, but I'll do it anyway. Rendering, it's going to transfer across, and lighting, it's going to transfer across. The general tab, which is the grid size, the cache, the playback settings, the max script, all that stuff, that is all disabled, so we're not doing anything with that. I click on OK, and nothing seems to change here because we're in the General tab and these are the dimensions. But I go to Simulation, suddenly it's using maximum iterations of 75, timescales brought down, I got turbulence, I got all the stuff in here. My rendering tab is transferred across, so I have my gradient which I set up, my color curve, all the settings that I'm using. Under simulation, I'm not outputting smoke anymore. So if I run the simulation now, it should look pretty similar to the smoke, the fire effect I had before. The only difference is my particle settings are different, and also my emitter here is not the same size, so I might need to make it bigger. But ultimately, it's transferring across the exact information that I was using. So this is great because it means that I can have a style, like a certain type of effect that I use a lot, and I can quickly bring that in. It also means if I wanted to, I might really like this gradient. And then rather than having to go and load it up all the time, I could go and I could just save it out as a gradient. So here I have my nice fireball. I might need to raise it up a bit. But here we can see we now have the fireball effect, and it's pretty similar. And that was purely just from this preset. I just recreated the scene and it works fine. Now, like I said, if I wanted to, I could, I might like this gradient a lot. I might disable the fire so that way it uses the actual opacity of the flame, and adjust the color or something so that way it's a bit more intense. And then, so I might like that. I might go File, Save Preset, and I'll just say Fire Gradient 1. Alright, and click on OK. Now we have Fire Gradient 1 in there as well. Now what I could do is, in here, if I wanted, I could actually well, what I could do is get rid of my container and create a new one. And I can just go to the rendering tab. As we can see, it's not set up. I'm going to File, Load Preset, and I just bring in literally my rendering tab. Now by doing that, it's just a quick way that I've set up the exact fire type that I like. Okay, so that's set up, nothing else has changed, it's all the default values. Same deal, you go File, Load Preset Fire Gradient. I could say use the General tab. And notice Grid Size Output Playback Max Script. I can turn off rendering because I've already loaded that in, so it's not going to override it, it's already set up. I go to the General tab, suddenly it's exporting to the path that I set up. It's exporting the grid size, dimensions, everything that I had too. So if I'm doing a shot where I'm using the same dimensions and grid size and everything, this is a way that I can quickly load that up to make the exact information. And this is something that I do occasionally, is if I have a shot that I'm using in multiple passes and I want to have the same dimensions, everything, rather than trying to save out this information, I'll just save it out as a preset just for the dimensions of the grid, because otherwise I can write a script that is like blah equals dollars dot width, and then blah h equals dollars dot height, and store all this information into a matrix and then bring it back in and reapply it. And I used to do that, and it just takes up a lot more time. Whereas here, to save the preset, I can go and load it into a new file. I can copy across my gradients, my wavelet settings, whatever I like, and transfer it very easily into what I'm doing. So this is a pretty neat way of working, and I tend to use the preset method a lot. I can save it, and I can choose from multiple ones to work with. And there's just a lot of different things you can do in there.